If you've ever spent a night driving through empty highway stretches, you know how truck stops feel after midnight. In the daytime, they're just noisy places with coffee that tastes burned and shelves full of snacks. But at night, they turn into something else. The lights are too bright in the wrong places, and too dim everywhere else. The air smells like diesel, wet pavement, and hot food that's been sitting under heat lamps for too long. You hear engines idling like heavy breathing. And every once in a while, you see someone walking alone across the lot, and you get that quick thought. I hope they get to wherever they're going. This story happened when I was in my early 20s. I wasn't a trucker, but I worked nights delivering medical supplies between towns. My job was basically driving long distances at weird hours, always tired, always trying to stay alert. One night, I was running late. The rain was on and off, and the highway looked like a long black ribbon with reflections of headlights stretching out into the distance. By the time I saw the sign for a truck stop, I was desperate. Not just for gas. For a bathroom. I pulled off the highway and rolled into the lot. It was half full. A couple trucks idling. A few cars scattered around. The building had that classic truck stop look, long, low, bright windows, and a neon sign buzzing like an angry insect. Inside, it was warm and smelled like coffee and fried food. There were maybe 6 or 7 people total. A guy behind the counter, 2 truckers near the drinks, a tired-looking mom with a little kid near the restrooms, and an older man sitting alone in a booth staring at nothing. I didn't waste time. I walked straight toward the restrooms. And that's when I noticed the sign. There were 2 sets of restrooms. One was clearly marked near the front, men's/women. Bright, clean, normal. But farther down the hall, near a door that looked like it led to a storage area, there was another sign. Smaller. Faded. Restrooms. It pointed past the diner seating, toward a narrow hallway that looked darker than it should have. I hesitated. The normal restrooms were occupied. I could see feet under the stalls, and a line had formed fast. I didn't have time to stand around. So I followed the faded sign. The hallway got colder the farther I went. The air felt stale, like it wasn't circulating back there. The lights were spaced out and buzzing. The floor tiles changed color slightly, like this section was older. At the end was a door with a men's restroom sign. The sign looked old, like it had been there for decades. I pushed the door open. Inside it was too quiet. No music. No hand dryers. No other voices. Just the hum of one flickering light above the sinks. There were 2 stalls. Both closed. I stepped forward, and that's when I saw something that made me pause. On the far wall, near the trash can, there were faint scratches. Like someone had dragged a key across the paint. Not 1 or 2. A bunch. Random lines overlapping. It felt like a nervous habit. Like someone had stood there for a long time, fidgeting. I told myself to stop being dramatic. I went to the closest stall and knocked lightly. No answer. I tried the door. Locked. I knocked on the other stall. Nothing. Tried it. Locked too. Now I was annoyed. "Hello?" I called out, trying to sound casual. "Anyone in there?" Still nothing. No shifting feet. No cough. Nothing. But I could see under the stall doors. No shoes. No shadows. No feet. My stomach tightened. I backed up slowly, staring at the stalls like I expected the doors to swing open by themselves. That's when I noticed something else. The mirror above the sinks wasn't a normal mirror. It reflected wrong. It was like the angle was slightly off. Like the room was just a little longer in the reflection than it was in real life. I took a step forward. In the mirror, it looked like I took a step, too, but delayed by half a beat. Like the reflection was catching up. I blinked hard, and the delay disappeared. I told myself it was the flickering light messing with my eyes. Then I heard the sound. A soft knock. Not on a stall. On the restroom door behind me. Tap, tap, tap. I turned quickly. No one was there. The door was closed. I could see the thin gap at the bottom. Nothing moved. Then the knocking happened again. Tap, tap. This time it sounded closer. Like it was coming from inside the wall. Or from the other side of the mirror. My throat went dry. I stepped back, bumped into the sink, and grabbed the edge to steady myself. And then I heard something else. A whisper. It wasn't loud. It was barely there. But it sounded like a voice trying not to be heard. Come in. I froze. I stared at the mirror. The whisper came again. Come in. It didn't sound like it came from the hallway. It sounded like it came from right in front of me. From the glass. My heart started hammering so hard it felt like it was shaking my ribs. I didn't think. I just turned and yanked the door open. The hallway was empty. But the lights out there seemed brighter now, like I'd been in a darker place than I realized. I walked quickly back toward the main area, trying to act normal, trying to not look like I'd just run from something. The cashier glanced at me. You find it? He asked. My mouth opened, but no words came out at first. Yeah, I said finally, voice tight. The restroom in the back is creepy. The cashier frowned. In the back? The one down the dark hallway, I said. 2 stalls. Old sign. The cashier stared at me like I'd said something impossible. We ain't got no restroom back there, he said. I laughed once, shaky. Yeah, you do. He shook his head slowly. No, man. Restrooms are right there. He pointed to the front. I felt heat rush to my face. Then what's down that hall? He looked uneasy now. Like he didn't want to answer. Storage, he said. Office. That's it. I stared at him. There's a men's room door. He set his jaw and walked out from behind the counter. Show me, he said. We walked together. The truckers watched us like they were curious but didn't want to be involved. We reached the hallway. And my stomach dropped. The faded sign was gone. Not covered. Not taken down, leaving marks. Gone like it had never been there. The hallway looked different too, brighter, shorter, less cold. The cashier opened the door at the end. It wasn't a restroom. It was a storage room full of boxes and cleaning supplies. No sinks. No stalls. Just shelves. I stared into it, feeling dizzy. That's not possible, I whispered. The cashier's face was pale. You sure you ain't half asleep, son? I backed away slowly. My eyes went to the wall where the men's room sign should have been. Nothing. Just blank paint. I drove away as soon as I could. I didn't even use the restroom. I didn't even buy anything. And for the next hour, I kept checking my mirrors, expecting to see that hallway behind me, following me on the road. A week later, curiosity got the better of me. I looked up the truck stop online. It had reviews going back years. Most were normal. but one caught my attention. It was buried deep, posted by someone with a generic username. It said, "Don't go down the back hall. There's a bathroom that isn't there. My cousin went in and didn't come out. Employees pretended never existed." No details. No follow-up. Just that. And the creepiest part? I tried to find the truck stop again. I drove that same route months later, in daylight, watching for the sign. The exit was there. But when I took it, the truck stop wasn't. There was an empty lot with weeds and cracked pavement like it had been abandoned for years. No building. No neon. Just silence. And in the middle of the lot, standing by itself like a leftover piece of a different world, was a single doorframe. No walls around it. Just a doorway leading to nothing. Truckers have this thing where they'll warn you about certain places without really warning you. They'll say stuff like, "Don't stop there after midnight," and if you ask why, they'll shrug and go, "You'll see." I learned the hard way that sometimes they're not trying to scare you. They're trying to keep you alive. This happened when I was doing a cross-state run with my uncle. He was an actual trucker, big rig, long hauls, the kind of guy who could fall asleep sitting up but also spot trouble from a mile away. I was riding shotgun, mostly there to keep him company and help navigate. It was around 2 a.m. when we pulled into a massive truck stop off a highway that cut through nothing but dark fields and patches of trees. The place was busy for that hour. Dozens of rigs. Lights everywhere. The air thick with diesel and fried food. My uncle parked and said he was going in for coffee. "Stay here," he told me. "Lock the doors." I rolled my eyes. "It's a truck stop, not a war zone." He gave me a look. "Just do it." He walked off. I sat in the cab, scrolling my phone, listening to the crackle of the CB radio. Channel 19 was active. That's the one most truckers keep on. Lots of short chatter. Road warnings. Jokes. Complaints about traffic. Then a voice came through that didn't sound like a trucker. It sounded like a kid. Thin, shaky, like he was trying hard not to cry. "Hello?" the voice said. "Can anyone hear me?" The channel went quiet for a second. Then someone responded. "You got the wrong channel, buddy." The kid spoke again. I'm at the truck stop. I don't know where my dad went." A different voice, older, annoyed. "Stop playing around." The kid's voice trembled. "I'm not playing. Please. I can't find him." I sat up, suddenly alert. Because the kid sounded close. Not like a random broadcast miles away. Like he was in the same lot. Someone else asked, "Which truck stop?" The kid hesitated. Then he said something that made the hair on my arms stand up. I'm at the one with the red sign. The one with the door behind the bathrooms." A few truckers laughed. One said, "Ain't no door behind the bathrooms." The kid's breathing got louder over the radio. "He went through it," the kid whispered. "He told me to wait. He said he'd be right back." A trucker snapped, "All right, that's enough." The kid suddenly screamed. Not a long scream. Just a sharp, startled yelp, like someone grabbed him. Then the radio went dead. A few seconds later, it crackled again. But the voice that came back wasn't a kid's. It was deeper. Calm. Almost amused. "Appreciate the help," the voice said. "He's with us now." Then static. I stared at the radio like it had just spoken my name. Outside, the lot looked normal. People walking. Trucks idling. But I noticed something I hadn't before. Near the side of the building, by a row of dumpsters, there was a small cluster of shadows where the lights didn't reach. And in that darkness, something moved. Like someone standing there, just out of view, watching the lot. I locked the doors tighter, even though they were already locked. My uncle came back a few minutes later with coffee and a sandwich. I told him what I heard. He didn't laugh. He didn't brush it off. His face got serious. "Turn that off," he said, pointing to the CB. "Did you hear it too?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not tonight. But I've heard stories." "What stories?" He sipped his coffee, eyes scanning the lot through the windshield. "Some truck stops got gaps," he said. "Places that don't belong. Folks go looking for a shortcut, or a back door, or they follow something they shouldn't." I swallowed. "The kid said something about a door behind the bathrooms." My uncle's jaw tightened. He started the engine. "We're leaving," he said. "What?" "Why?" "Because I don't like this place," he said, voice firm. As we pulled out, I glanced at the building. And I saw something that made my stomach drop. A little boy, maybe 8 or 9, stood near the dumpsters in that dark patch. He was barefoot. He was staring right at our truck. He raised his hands slowly and waved. Then he pointed toward the back of the building. And even from a distance, I could see it. A door. Plain metal. Half hidden in shadow. Not part of the building's normal entrances. A door that looked like it had been added later. Or like it had always been there, but you only noticed it if you were meant to. We drove off fast. I tried to keep looking back, but the road curved and the truck stop disappeared behind us. An hour later, my uncle finally spoke again. "You did good not going inside," he said. "What happened to the kid?" I asked. My uncle didn't answer. The next morning, at another stop in daylight, I asked a different trucker about it. Just casually, like I was making conversation. The guy's expression changed immediately. He looked at me like I'd said a forbidden word. "Don't talk about that," he muttered. "Why?" I asked. He leaned closer and lowered his voice. "Because if you talk about him," the trucker said, "he starts talking back." That night, we stayed on the road. No more big truck stops. Only small gas stations with bright lights and open views. But even now, years later, sometimes when I'm driving alone at night, I'll hear static on my car radio. Not music. Not a station. Just static. And underneath it, faint and far away, like it's coming from a long hallway, I'll hear a kid's voice whisper, "Hello? Can anyone hear me?" There are some places you stop at once and never forget. Not because they were nice. Because something about them felt wrong. Like they were built on a bad idea. This happened to a woman I used to date. Her name was Rachel, and she told me this story like she was confessing something she'd kept locked away for years. She was driving across 3 states to move in with her sister. She had a small car packed with everything she owned. It was late, and she'd been pushing herself too hard. She said she was fighting sleep when she finally pulled into a truck stop around 1 a.m. She planned to get coffee, use the restroom, and maybe shut her eyes for 20 minutes. The place looked normal enough. Bright windows. Neon. Trucks lined up like sleeping animals. Rachel went inside and immediately noticed how tired everyone looked. Not just sleepy. Worn down. Like the building drained them. She grabbed a coffee and went toward the back where the restrooms were. That's when she saw it. A photo booth. One of those old ones that prints out strips. The kind you see in malls sometimes. It was sitting near the hallway to the restrooms, like it was part of the truck stop's fun, little features. But it didn't fit. The booth looked older than everything else. Dark red curtain. Scratched plastic seat. Faded instructions. And it was on. The little screen glowed faintly. Rachel said she doesn't even know why she did it, but she walked over and pulled the curtain aside. Inside the booth, taped to the wall, were photo strips. Dozens of them. Like someone had been collecting them and sticking them there. Rachel leaned in to look. The photos weren't silly selfies. They were all taken in low light, like the booth light barely worked. And every strip had the same theme. A person in the booth, staring straight at the camera. While behind them, in the shadowy background, a second face appeared. Sometimes it was just an outline. Sometimes it was closer, like it was leaning over their shoulder. Sometimes it was barely there at all. But it was always there. Rachel felt her skin prickle. She backed away, about to leave. Then the booth made a sound. A soft mechanical whir, like it was warming up. And the screen displayed a message. Next photo ready. Rachel laughed nervously and stepped back. But the curtain moved. Not from her. From inside. Like someone's hand tugged it from behind. Rachel froze. Her coffee sloshed in the cup. She whispered, "Hello?" No answer. But the curtain slowly opened wider. And she saw the seat. Empty. No one inside. Rachel practically ran to the restroom, locked herself in a stall, and sat there shaking. After a few minutes, she calmed down enough to convince herself it was a dumb coincidence. Maybe the booth was broken. Maybe the curtain moved because of air. She washed her hands and walked back out. The booth curtain was closed again. Rachel told herself she wouldn't look. But as she passed, she heard the whirring sound again. Then a click. Like a camera shutter. Rachel stopped walking. She turned slowly. The booth's little slot, where photos come out, was feeding a fresh strip. A photo strip that hadn't been there before. Rachel said she didn't want to touch it. Her whole body screamed not to. But curiosity won. She pulled the strip out. And her stomach dropped. It was her. Her face lit by the booth's weak flash. Her expression was scared, like she'd been caught off guard. And behind her, in the shadow, was a second face. Not a clear face. Just the suggestion of eyes and a smile. Like something pressed close behind her in the darkness. Rachel's hand started shaking so hard she almost dropped the strip. She looked at the booth curtain. It was still closed. She whispered, "That's not possible." Then her phone buzzed. A notification. A photo had been added to her phone's gallery. Rachel opened it. It was the same image. Her face in the booth. And behind her, that shadowy smile. But Rachel had never taken a photo. She hadn't even sat down. She backed away slowly, bumping into a display of snacks. That's when she noticed something else. The people in the truck stop were looking at her. Not all of them. Just two. A man at a table near the window. A woman near the coffee station. They weren't staring openly. They kept glancing at her, then glancing at the booth, like they were waiting to see what she'd do. Rachel walked quickly to the counter and asked the cashier, "What is that photo booth?" The cashier didn't even look up. "Don't use it," he muttered. Rachel swallowed. "I didn't. But it printed my picture." The cashier's hands paused. He finally looked up, eyes tired. "If it prints you," he said quietly, "then you're on its list." Rachel felt sick. "What list?" The cashier shook his head, like he wasn't supposed to say more. Rachel walked out, got into her car, locked the doors, and sat there breathing hard. She tried to start the car. It didn't start. The engine turned over, but it wouldn't catch. She tried again. Nothing. Then she saw movement outside. Someone walking between the trucks. Slow. Not headed anywhere specific. Just wandering. Rachel leaned forward, trying to see. And the person stopped near her car. A man. Tall, thin, wearing a dark jacket. He stood outside her driver's side window, staring in. Rachel said she couldn't see his face clearly because of the reflections, but she could see his posture. Too still. Too patient. Like he could stand there all night. Rachel didn't open her window. She mouthed, "Can I help you?" The man raised one hand and pointed toward the truck stop entrance. Then he made a small motion with his fingers. Like he was mimicking a camera shutter. Click. Rachel looked back at the building. Through the glass, she could see the photo booth. The curtain was open now. And in the booth's darkness, something looked like it was sitting there. Not fully visible. Just a shape. But it felt like it was facing her. Watching. Rachel grabbed her phone and called her sister, panicking. While she was on the phone, her car suddenly started. Like it had never been broken. Rachel didn't question it. She threw it into drive and peeled out of the lot. She didn't stop again until the sun came up. When she finally showed her sister the photo, something was different. The photo on her phone was still there. But Rachel's face was blurred out. Like someone had smudged it. And the shadow behind her was clearer now. A smile. Wide and pleased. As if it had gotten what it wanted. Rachel deleted the photo. It came back the next day. She deleted it again. It came back again. Eventually she got a new phone. New number. Knew everything. But she said that sometimes, late at night, if she scrolls too fast through her photos, she'll see it flash for a split second. That photo booth picture. And every time, the shadow behind her looks closer. If you ask long-haul drivers about the scariest places they've stopped, a lot of them will say the same thing. It's not the empty roads. It's not the storms. It's the truck stops where the lights don't reach the far corners. Because those corners feel like they belong to someone else. This last story came from a guy I met during a late-night delivery run. I'll call him Darren. Darren was the kind of man who looked like he'd seen too much and stopped being surprised by it. He didn't talk much, but when he did, he made you listen. We were both grabbing coffee at a small counter in a huge truck stop somewhere out in the middle of the state. The kind of place that's basically a small town, diner, showers, convenience store, repair shop. We started talking about routes. Then Darren said out of nowhere, "You ever notice how some lots don't make sense?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" He took a slow sip of coffee. "Like you count the rows of trucks. Then you look again, And one row is wrong. I laughed a little, thinking he meant getting turned around. Darren didn't laugh back. He leaned in slightly. I'm serious. Then he told me what happened. He said it was about 2 years ago. He pulled into a massive truck stop late, around 3 a.m. He was exhausted. He parked in a row near the far edge of the lot because the main spots were full. He remembered it clearly because he counted the rows while he walked in. Row 1 near the building. Row 2. Row 3. He parked in row 7. He knew because he always parked at the end of a row so he could pull out easy. He went inside, got food, used the restroom, and chatted with another driver for a few minutes. When he came back out, the lot felt different. Not obviously. Just enough that his instincts tightened. The air seemed quieter. Less engine noise. He started walking toward row 7. But when he got there, his truck wasn't there. He stopped, confused, and looked up and down. Same kind of trucks. Same lights. Same wet pavement. But not his. He walked to the next row. Nothing. He kept walking, faster now, heart starting to beat harder. He reached the far edge of the lot, where the darkness beyond the lights looked thick like smoke. Still no truck. Darren pulled out his phone flashlight and went back toward the building, thinking maybe he miscounted. That's when he noticed something. There was a row of trucks he didn't remember walking past. A row that wasn't lit properly. The lights above it were dim, like dying bulbs. And the trucks there were still. No idling. No movement. No people. Just parked rigs like abandoned shells. Darren said he felt a cold pressure in his chest. Like his body recognized something dangerous before his mind did. He walked closer anyway, because he was getting angry now. He needed his truck. His keys were in his pocket. His whole life was in that cab. As he stepped into that dim row, the air changed. It got colder, and the smell shifted. Less diesel. More damp metal. Old water. Something stale. He shined his light along the trucks. And he realized something else. None of them had readable plates. Not because of dirt. Because the plates were missing. He got halfway down the row and finally saw a truck that looked familiar. His truck. Same dents. Same stickers. He rushed toward it, relief flooding him. He climbed up, unlocked the door, and pulled it open. The inside was wrong. It was his cab, but it looked like it had been sitting for years. Dust on the dashboard. A stale smell. The seat fabric looked faded. Darren's stomach turned. He grabbed his steering wheel cover. It crumbled slightly under his fingers, like dry foam. He jumped down and backed away, breathing hard. That's when he heard a voice behind him. Not loud. Just there. You found it, the voice said. Darren turned. A man stood at the end of the row, half lit by the dying bulbs. But Darren said the man didn't look like a normal person. His clothes were trucker clothes, but too clean in a way that felt wrong, like a costume. His face was pale and smooth, and his eyes didn't blink enough. Darren said, "Who are you?" The man smiled gently. "Same as you," he said. "Just parked longer." Darren swallowed. "Where's everybody?" The man glanced at the trucks. "They're resting." Darren tried to step around him. "I'm leaving." The man's smile stayed, but his eyes sharpened. "You can't leave," he said, still calm. "Not once you're in this row." Darren felt panic rise up his throat. What is this? The man tilted his head slightly, like he was listening to something far away. This is the missing row, he said. The one you don't notice until it notices you. Darren backed up, keeping his eyes on the man. Then he heard it. A soft tapping. Not on metal. On glass. He looked toward his truck's window and saw a handprint appear on the inside. Like someone inside the cab pressed their palm against the glass. Then another handprint. Then fingers dragging downward slowly, leaving streaks in the dust. Darren said he couldn't see anyone inside. Just the prints forming like invisible people. He stumbled back, heart hammering. The man at the end of the row spoke again, voice almost kind. You can stay, he offered. Everyone does eventually. Darren didn't answer. He turned and ran. He sprinted out of that dim row back into the brighter part of the lot. And as soon as he crossed that invisible boundary, the sound came back, engines idling, people talking, normal life. He stopped, gasping, and looked back. The dim row was gone. Not hidden. Gone. Just an open stretch of pavement with normal lights. Darren's truck was parked right where it should have been, in row 7, clean and normal like nothing happened. He didn't question it. He jumped in and drove off immediately. He said he didn't stop until sunrise. I asked him, So what's the twist? You got away. Darren stared into his coffee for a long time. Then he said, I didn't. He pulled out his phone and showed me a picture. It was a photo of his truck parked at a stop. But the background behind it was wrong. Too dark. Too empty. And in the far corner of the photo, under a dim light, was a row of trucks. A row that didn't belong. And if you zoomed in, you could see something that made my skin crawl. A man standing at the end of the row. Watching the camera. Smiling gently. Darren said, I've changed routes. Changed schedules. I avoid night stops. I do everything right. He looked up at me, eyes tired. But every once in a while, I pull into a lot and I swear I can count the rows. He tapped the table softly, 3 times. 7, he whispered. 8. 9. Then he leaned closer. And one day, he said, I'm gonna look up. And that missing row will be waiting again. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories. If you want to share your story with us, send us at belladarktales@gmail.com.